This is Real Black History Part 2. We'll call it True Black History, in other words. So I'm a truth teller, a truth lover, a Christ lover, a God lover, a life lover, a reality lover. But my mind isn't perfect. My references are Wikipedia, Google, and the Bible. I forgot to mention the Bible in Part 1. And I'm going to give a brief overview, just going from the beginning. I didn't go in order from the beginning of history, right? But I'm going to give just a real quick before I continue where I left off. And I'm taking a chance because actually I'm downloading Part 1. And sometimes they don't download. I may have to start all over. But I guess it's good I'm getting practice. I'm new at speaking. I'm a writer and an analyzer, but I'm not used to speaking. But I guess I'm going to learn. I have to redo stuff a lot of times. And it's best to do it when your mind's sharp, not when you're tired. So, but sometimes my schedule doesn't allow that. But here it is. Black history. God created the heaven and the earth. He created Adam and Eve. Then we had the flood later, much later, right? We don't know. I don't know. I mean, I'm not convinced. I've looked at this, but I'm not convinced I don't know what ethnicity Adam and Eve were, right? So I do know that they were, you could say they were Jew, but I can't confirm that because I don't know if the Jewish ethnicity officially began until, if you call it an ethnicity or even if you define it as an ethnicity, or if you define it as a tribe, or like a branch off, or just the historical, if it's based on a history, of a lineage, a chosen family, started with a chosen family. That if that's the case, that would be Abraham, I think. So Abraham, and then he had Isaac and Ishmael. So ethnicity, though, I know for sure where the black ethnicity started. And that was from Ham, one of Noah's sons after the flood. Ham, Shem, and Japheth split off when God changed language. So ethnicity came from language, not from skin tones and all that. So you get your skin tones. Now I'm repeating, this part's a repeat, but I'll do it brief. You get your skin tone basically from the natural foods in the, near the equator. And it has properties in the food that helps your body create more vitamin D and hormones that help protect your skin from the sun. So your skin darkens and over time. So that we were separated by ethnicity a few thousand years. This is a review of what I talked about last time. Then you have, so Moses, you didn't have much mixed intermarriage or anything because of language barrier. But you did have some still because of borders being close to another nation. Moses escaped Egypt after he killed an Egyptian who was abusing a slave, beating up a slave. And so I'm not going to say it was murder, first of all, because the guy could have fought back. I don't know if people don't specify that. But he fought and protected the slave that was being beaten by the Egyptian, and he died. Moses escaped and fled to Ethiopia. And, the right exact city name, I can't remember. It's not Meridian, or I can't remember. That could be Meridian is some kind of town. That could have been, I might be getting that mixed up. So, but it's Ethiopia. And so some debate whether his wife came from Saudi Arabia. That's the new thing, because recently I'm the one probably who started recognizing that point quite a few years back, that I magnified the point that I think he married a black woman from Ethiopia. So God did allow interethnic marriage. And so that there was that mixing, for example. And Moses being a Jew from Israel, and marrying an Ethiopian woman. But it's debatable if she had moved there from Saudi Arabia across the Red Sea. But I will tell you this. They did believe the Bible. They believed the same God as, however much of the Bible was written at that time. They believed the God of the Bible, put it like that. So they did agree on beliefs. So that was, Islam did not exist until 600 years after Christ. So there was Arabs. When you talk about Ishmael, the Arab the Arab ethnicity came from Ishmael, not Islam. It's not that Islam was created through that. Islam was created by Muhammad way after Christ, 600 years or so after Christ. So that's okay. So that's a briefing of where history starts. It started from Ham, Noah's son Ham, Black history, and of course Adam and Eve. We all came from Adam and Eve. So that's one human race. So when you listen to Democrats calling people racist, they're calling the wrong people racist. If a person trusts and believes the Bible, so they're gonna those are in line with one human race. We are all one human race, not a racist view like evolution that says we all came from different animals unequally and have no speciality. So you want to tend to go and act like, well, every one of those believers in the Bible are hypocrites and they're just straight up because for racist motives. Well, why don't you start, when you deal with racism, you need to deal with it starting with people who don't claim to the Bible. Those are the main people who we know 100% are racist. And now whether that's their main motive for life or if power and divide and conquer is their motive, but mainly they reject God. So they reject the biblical account and that we're one race. So that's racism. And that's the same people who are always calling other people racist all the time in Democrat media. Okay, I don't want to go back and review the Democrat Party is the party of slavery. We'll just say that. And they've lied. They're angry Republicans ended slavery. And so they've lied about Republicans being racist because Republicans are the party of Christ. I mean, they have a lot of believers in Christ. They support Christ. They don't promote so the Democrats have hypocrites. They'll say, I'm a Christian. But they promote false religions, and they tell all Christians, if you don't accept these false religions, then you're a prejudice phobia type name. Islamophobia is a popular name. They don't do that with Buddhaphobia or whatever, because Islam's the biggest false religion there is, pretty much. I think it's the biggest one. Yeah, that even over Mormonism. So Mormonism's a false religion too. They're the same. They believe the same thing as Islam in a sense. Not that they don't have the same tenets, but they both disagree. They call Christ a liar. They both hate Christ. So Jehovah's Witnesses hate Christ. Islam hates Christ. Buddhists don't directly, they reject Christ, but that's different. Hindus reject Christ, right? So the only true religion is the one that proves heaven for the second life. So that's my quick review. Now I'm going to try to pick up where I left off and ran out of time on the first video. And I think I was explaining, I'm going to have to do it this way. I was explaining about how they never talk about it, but slavery, you're not allowed to talk about slavery. Anytime you say, it's kind of similar to, well, I think there were similar things going on ever since slavery till now. It's how they do. Somebody attacks the police, then they get hurt by the police, and they ignore the fact that they attacked the police and blame the police. But would that have started? That starts with criminals. That's a criminal who would attack the police, right? And it's a criminal organization, Democrats, the whole Democrat Party. It's a criminal organization who lies and falsifies, bears false witness against their neighbor. So they've done this to take over the country and steal votes and everything else by lying about Republicans being racist. And the truth is, Democrats are racist. Bottom line. They have the fake Christians who support false religions. And then atheists, they're more open atheists than Libertarian Party and stuff like that. But they actually agree with decent politics for free market systems and stuff. But I'm independent. I didn't mention that in my first part one. I'm independent. I lean Republican. Definitely support the Republican Party because you have to choose one or the other in the long run. You can't even choose Libertarian or independent candidates. But I'm independent because of my, I'm more independent in that I'm less traditional, and that I'm promote legalizing natural plants and putting drugs in the hands of doctors and licensed dealers. So the concentrated forms. So the concentrated forms actually, the plants, natural medicinal plants that they made outlawed, they should put in hands of licensed dealers like a liquor store or something. That's my view. And I want to do a different video of that. So, but that by the way, it's hard to get around that because that's the Democrats, the way they open the borders and let drug cartel in and stuff like that. I do believe that they did discriminate against the black community and poor communities, but black mostly, and dumped drugs on the black communities and then made laws. They lied about what's a good drug and a bad drug because God created all medicine. So we should have, instead of dumping it and creating gang society, the Democrats promoted gangs, which is slavery. That part I haven't got to. So that's true. They've promoted slavery and tricked everybody to pretend like they hate slavery during Black History Month, right? And really what they don't hate it. They love throwing it in everybody's face to divide and conquer. And so plus they love being racist. They love promoting black racism because they're not allowed to openly be white racist. So, but what they're doing, some of them are doing it from a racist motive. Some of them are doing it for a government power motive. Some of them are doing it for the purpose of communism, which is a form of slavery. But they've promoted gang slavery, and it's no contract. But technically, there's an unwritten contract with the way gangs work. You can never get out once you're initiated, all this kind of stuff. And they put him in and out of the prison system. So they agree to do that too in these gangs for drug charges. So it's a slave system, and who hosts it? The Democrat Party. And so proof that Democrats dumped drugs on black communities is the border. We have to do it at the border. It's obvious, right? So now you can't make fun of that anymore. Some people say, oh, that's just an excuse and this and that. No, look at the border. The government, because usually they'll say the government dumped. Well, yeah, but which side of government? The Democrats, the ones who keep lying about racism. So you do, but racism comes, a clear definition of racism is evolution. Evolution is real racism. So it's not always animosity. I mean, a lot of Democrats, white Democrats and black Democrats, who are both racist, who both believe evolution, or some people are tricked by these lies. But at some point, you got to take responsibility for believing and loving lies. If you love lies, particularly, you have a motive behind it. But a lot of people just love lies. They're not living in reality. Some of them may call themselves Christian, but they're only Christian enough to enjoy some of the music and not really believe in the words they're singing. And sometimes they don't have the best lyrics, but they're not Christian enough to say that Jesus is real and Islam is not. They're not Christian enough to say that Jesus is real and Muhammad is not, as far as being a god, or Buddha is not. They're not Christian enough, which means they're not Christian at all. So some people are delusional. Some people are purposely hypocrite. Hypocrite is somebody who, it's not somebody who went and messed up and had sex with somebody. That's called a carnal Christian, and they sinned, but doesn't mean they're being a hypocrite. Now, some people do that on the regular because they're not sincere, and which makes them hypocrite. But the straight up outright hypocrite is the person who pretends they know they don't believe in Jesus as God, and they pretend, or they trick people and say, I believe in Jesus, but they don't believe that he's God. They don't believe he's equal with God. They believe he's just a prophet. Some people say that hypocritically. Well, I believe in Jesus, and try to trick you into thinking Mormonism's good. They're being a hypocrite at that point, to keep you glued in. You have to denounce Mormonism to go to heaven, pretty much. You have to denounce false. Now, some people don't understand the theology, but generally, you'd have to denounce Islam to be a true Christian, right? If you know what you're talking about, you'd have to. So you have, or else you're not trusting Christ. You're kind of banking on Islam, or you're just here for the money, just to survive and get along with the bullies, and do whatever they say, believe whatever they say, pretend you believe what they say. That's a phobia. Islamophobia is mostly people who are in the Islamic religion are Islamophobes. They're only believe in Islam and stay with Islam so they don't get hurt, right? So then there's others that really believe it, or they support all the bullying. So they have so anyway, the definition of Islamophobe doesn't make sense. So you have Islam. Where does that tie in? I'll try to get back to my other points, but Islam has a big influence on the black culture. So that's part of black history. Muhammad Ali, believe it or not, is the biggest, he's probably one of the biggest evangelists for Islam. One of the most effective, has probably convinced more people that Islam's not a bad, because he was a good, well-behaved person in a sense, super smart and funny. And but the whole time he's convincing people that Islam is equal with Christianity. He even pretended he'd go to Billy Graham crusades. But Muhammad, if he didn't denounce Islam before he died, he didn't go to Christ's heaven. That's a fact biblically. And so he didn't trust Christ for heaven. So and there's no other heaven, no other proven heaven, all right? You got heaven or you got misery. You're heaven with God or you're misery without God and his love, joy, peace, patience, goodness. No more sorrow, no more crying, no more pain. Right? So without talking about hell, that's called hell. Hell, basically, the separation from God is hell. That is hell, bottom line. So without going into, I don't know how the fire brimstone part comes in and all that. I can't explain it all the way. But definitely, there's one heaven that we know of, and it's Christ, and he proved it. Resurrection. So there's a big influence. Usually when they're saying you're not being black, okay, you've traded. Why are you talking? Why don't you use an ebonics? And they pick on black people for not using ebonics and all that. And that starts from a root of Islam, trying to make sure that that we don't look like equal human beings. They're being racist. So you have a lot of Islamic influence on black Americans particularly, and they've been lied to in prisons. They have Islam. They shouldn't have it. They should only have Bibles because it's the only one that teaches love your neighbor and redemption and all that. So that's all they should have really in prisons, aside from having workbooks, books that for trades to teach you how to build houses and whatever. So trade schools, they should have that. And they should have jobs available so you can pay back what you stole. So they've used lying to black people in modern society. Democrats have lied to black people to hurt, but it's not just to hurt black people, it's to hurt the white people who freed them from slavery, who freed not just black people, but freed the whole of America from slavery. Because there were 300,000 white slaves. There were Asian slaves, there were Indian slaves, and there were Indian slave masters. There were, I don't know much about Asian slave masters because there's a low population, but they may have had that. They had, but they definitely had black slave masters. I've already said 4,000, I think, approximately, who had 12,000 black slaves, particularly. But they didn't have white slaves; they had black slaves. So, I think I ran out of time when I was talking about on part one that you had. So a lot of the black culture here today, they aren't ancestors of slaves. I want to reiterate that point. They're not ancestors of slaves. Most of them are not, right? A lot of them are just, migrants, regular migrants. And then a lot of them the ones in the lead of the Democrat Party and in Hollywood are probably, at least a lot of them, are ancestors of the black slave masters in Africa and who moved here and were angry that we ended slavery, right? And so now they may not come right away, but as Democrats reformed and thought of strategies like the prohibition, alcohol prohibition, making drugs illegal, and Democrats had created KKK at the time, and Democrats had gotten big on evolution at the time. So they made these drug laws that are because they knew their science back then. Our best medicines still come from back around that time, early 1900s, really early 1900s. And they made their best meal plans, 3 meals a day, all that stuff. All that standard stuff that it's hard to go against, which I'm not always into 3 meals a day, but 2 meals maybe. But when you're older and your metabolism's not good, right? And if you're not working hard manual labor and running 10 miles a day, right? Don't always, you might not need 3 meals right away. I'd say wake up like the Bible says and don't think about food. Don't worry about food. Skip breakfast. But if you're doing hard manual labor, then you should have breakfast probably. So, but generally, it's hard to refute what they came up with back then. You haven't found anything better. They got their best medicines back then, right? And then they knew what they were doing when they made the best medicines illegal, like the coca leaf. The coca leaf, I mean, I'm pretty sure coca leaf has the best antidepressant properties in it that they can extract and take out the more addictive stuff properties, but they can also make them very mellow forms to put in medicine. And it also has pain medicine feature, and that's what's addictive to most people. Anything that helps with pain is what is addictive, and then especially also the emotional addiction it can be for the pain, numbing pain too. But it's all that the emotional addiction to something like Coke is because it is good for depression. It does help depression. So they have and they demonize that drug. Why? Because they make so much money off it in the street. But guess what? So they've put it in the hands of killers and stealers. Thieves and killers run the business mostly, right? So everybody doesn't get into it for that. They think it's good money. They're tricked into it. But then if anybody who's been in it for any amount of time knows that they can't get away from all the killers and thieves. And so you just, at some point, I mean, I've been around that before, but I couldn't handle it for more than a day being around it because, well, first of all, I don't believe in addiction. So I didn't get addicted. But second of all, I guess I didn't. If God didn't help me break addiction, when I was in those circles, my addiction was broken because they'll rob everything you have in 1 hour. So you can't, that they helped me keep from getting addicted, I guess too. So anything you do regularly, you can get more dependent on it, and would be harder to break the addiction. But as far as a lot of it has to do with social life. Once you've been robbed, once you've been in that, it's hard to recover, and it's hard for reasons of you don't want to wait to get your car back. You don't want to wait to get your license back. You're impatient with it, and you get depressed. It's really depressing because the thief should be paying for this stuff and getting it back to me. I shouldn't have to work all over again for it and wait, and then be hated the whole time because you're hated on by people for not having those means. And you don't even fit in that bracket of not being responsible in that sense of having worked to get it and all that. So it can be depressing because you also know that socially there is segregation, and you're supposed to be, you really kind of fit in with the people who have been abused like that. In some ways but you want to meet people who are abused, who are trying to come up, and you want friendship through somebody who's been through the same and not nitpicky about every little thing, right? So you have nitpick bullies come from, in a sense, or just people who, it's kind of like people in the successful side of society, I'll put it like that, who've never been robbed before and all those kind of things. It's really got more to do with being robbed than it does addiction a lot of times. So, so people can be addicted because they want that escape from the pain, emotional pain or whatever. Or they also think that if you're single and you like wanting a relationship, you may think that you don't match somebody who's never been through those troubles. But then the problem is, if you think you're going to find a relationship out in the underground, well, a lot of times they're slaves. They can't get escape. They have bosses out there. You're not gonna find out if somebody's part of that game, just sold in on it or not, because they don't talk out there. People don't talk. They're not allowed to speak. Mostly they're scared to be seen speaking to somebody that's outside their network. It's a slavery system. It's slaves, and so you can't. But on the other side, the successful side of society is. But I say this because this does affect black culture a lot, because Democrats designed it that way. Democrat leaders have designed it that way. So that's why I do have more black friends than white friends, because if white people, most of the white people that got into those situations, underground world, chose it. They chose it. Whereas it's not true with black folks. A lot of black folks were lied into it, but lied by government, lied by media, lied to. That's why I'm doing these videos, to let people know you're being lied to. Come on, when are you going to wake up and see they're lying? They're the racist ones. They're calling Trump a racist. And Trump gave y'all to go to college, and for black business, real business, he gave $200 billion, world record history gift. It's a that's reparation. That's real reparation right there. He did it. And it's necessary. You know, people will debate whether it's necessary or not, but it is. The Democrats have made it necessary. They've stolen more than white people. White people too. They've done it to white people, but they've stolen, with the rules they make, they've stolen housing from black people. They've stolen their properties. They've stolen their rights to have properties. They've stolen their rights to have jobs. They've stolen their right with irrelevant felonies for drug stuff that should be legal. They've stolen given them a felony and stolen their right to move to another state and escape a violent gang, you know. So, you know, stuff like that keeps people trapped. And so Democrats have created all that, but they keep voting for them. Well, they've been lied to. But not just that. There is the side of the black culture that is Islamic. They're racist. There's tons of racists, but partly because they've been lied to. That's why it's so large. They've never been called out on racism on purpose, because Democrats want black people to be racist. The white Democrats want that. That's hard for me to figure out, but they want black people to be racist and hate white people, especially white Americans, especially white Republicans, because white Republicans are still fighting for their freedom, for everybody's freedom, okay, including the black community. And they're not racist. They believe in Christ. That's the party of Christ. The Republican is. So I'm independent, and I believe in Christ even more strongly than the Republicans, right? So not all the Republicans, but then some of the political Republicans who there are some political Republicans trying to skew things, and they believe that you shouldn't talk religion and politics, and that's our number one freedom, right? Why are we not supposed to be educated? That's how you make slaves. They're using Islam to try to make a slave out of the whole nation. So they're calling it Islamophobia if you don't believe in Islam. So I have to believe in Islam, right? Or you're going to call me an Islamophobe. They're doing that right now, big time. So they've been doing this to black culture for years and years and years, through the prison system and other ways, through Farrakhan and groups like that. And nobody ever talks about that, but they've made a speech slave out of the black community for years and years, and using big gangsters and the people in jail. And so that does, in my recent connection, it does tie into the fact that Africa sold their prison population, their criminal side of it, into slavery. And I don't know for sure. I haven't studied for sure, found out facts. It'd take a lot of study. I got a lot to do, so I don't know if I'm putting generalizations out there, stuff that people get into studying facts and they don't tie into effect and influence. I look at effect and influence first, and I'm not good with studying and memorizing facts. So I'm putting this generalization out there for people I'm not claiming to have everything down pat. I am claiming to be the one that cares more than anybody else to get the truth, and cares about people and people who have been disadvantaged. I do care about that. And so I do believe in God. I'm looking for the truth, and I'm not the smartest person in the world. But I'm got any smartness I have is actually God given. This desire to keep analyzing and find it is actually not. Am I a true analyst? I probably have some true analyst abilities, but it's the desire to keep analyzing and figuring out how people have been trapped by a system, and psychological warfare, and true schematic things that do exist now, realize, because they have plans. They demonize Trump. They teach you to hate Trump, like literally hate, violent, and be violent, and that murder is okay and all that. They teach that stuff. And so that you can call anybody that's associated with Trump, you can hate and feel like you're okay. They have gangs that would kill me, right? And I'm not a Trump. I mean, my favorite person is Marco Rubio, but Trump is one of the best. Obviously, I like Trump better than Biden. I like Trump better than Democrat. He's running for Republican things, and he supports Christ, but I don't like that he curses a lot. Now, everybody can slip and curse sometimes, and there's some people that are so religious, wrongly religious, I'll say, that they think a person should be put to death over a curse word or something, you know. But I'm not that guy. I'm a guy that I'm like, I know I could slip and curse sometimes, but I don't practice cursing. I try to steer from it. Trump doesn't have much. He doesn't know that Bible verse, I guess. But so did I forget to say my favorite verses at the beginning? Anyway, I'm going to repeat them. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. That's 1 John 4:8. 1 John 1:8. If we say we have no sin, we make God a liar, and the truth is not in us. So I'm going to finish this video, by the way. I'm going to have to do a part 3, 30 minutes. This video I may have to redo because I've done too long. So that's more background. I'm going to do part 3, I guess. Hopefully this one works. I don't want to postpone it a whole week.